The police state is not coming. It is here now. The only thing that's coming is an increase in human suffering. It's simply a matter of how far the dial goes and how fast it gets dialed by lobbyists, advocates, and federally funded feminist fascists. But don't think it's just the feminists. They're simply a tool, useful termites being utilized to erode your civil rights. We have primary aggressor laws and mandatory arrest laws in at least 24 states. These laws are a byproduct of the Violence Against Women Act, which is specifically named to make it clear by exclusion of mention who it is acceptable to subject to violence. Under VAWA, police departments and courts get funding based on a number of arrests, prosecutions, and convictions of individuals based on physical profiling through primary aggressor laws. Did you catch that? Funding of the courts and police under VAWA based on filling quotas. This system, currently specific to domestic violence, doesn't allow for actual police work. That is, officers don't have much scope to exercise professional judgment. They simply arrive and arrest based on what amounts to a checklist. No cooling off for couples in disputes, no humane alternatives, just arrest. And the resultant destruction of lives, families, and communities, which follows in this system of scripted policing. Robots could do it, and probably soon they will. This is the police state we find ourselves in. But if you are not yet impressed by it, don't worry. It's just the beginning. Don't imagine either that exercising your remaining rights by voting are going to have any effect. Obama, the president who won the Nobel Peace Prize for not being George Bush, is continuing to waterboard, to conduct illegal wiretapping, and to conduct adventurous foreign wars on three fronts. The politicians are simply salesmen hired by corporations and bankers to talk you into your cage quietly. Somewhere in America, somebody hearing this is probably saying to themselves, I live in a free country. Do you? America has more prisoners per capita than any country in the world, 756 per 100,000 people. The next runner-up is Russia with 611, followed by New Zealand with 186. Canada's up there too, sitting in number 7 spot with 107 prisoners per 100,000 people. The war on drugs, taken here just for example, is not a failure, because it was never about stopping violent crime associated with the trafficking in street drugs. If you want to know what it's really about, turn on CNN and watch the ads. Those are the drugs your government wants you on. Not the harmless green stuff your kid grows and sells to his college buddies, but it's your kid, or his buddies, or you, sitting in American jails. Does anybody remember the mortgage and banking collapse? That was where bankers making short-term profits by issuing loans to bad-risk borrowers repackaged batches of those bad loans and started trading them between banks. A game of valuation of assets, where if they'd been unpackaged and examined would have shown no value because they were just bad debts. The financial collapse came when everybody realized that the balance sheets showing billions of dollars of assets turned out to represent no actual wealth in the real world. This financial collapse was created on purpose by the financial gurus like the directors of lenders like Goldman Sachs and Fannie Mae, who knew in advance that playing three-card Monte with billions of dollars in traded mortgages would eventually force a collapse. And then, here comes the kicker. Rather than those bankers going to jail, rather than lenders like Goldman and Fannie going bankrupt, being dissolved and sold up, no, rather than capitalism correcting itself, your elected representatives stepped in and transferred the billions of dollars of bad debt onto you and your children. That's what the bailout was. There is a name for this. It's called disaster capitalism, and Naomi Klein talks about it in her book, The Shock Doctrine. It's a tool in a standard kit of tools used by states throughout human history to transform themselves from open societies into police states. The array of laws flowing out of VAWA, such as primary aggressor laws and mandatory arrest laws, are another such tool, and they are especially effective because against primary aggressor laws there is no mechanism for protest. There is no way to engage in peaceful civil disobedience in a police state against these types of laws. What you can do, however, is to put down that bag of cheesies and demand the striking of laws by which police become robots enforcing policies of apartheid crafted by feminist ideologues, by script rather than by doing police work. But are you going to do anything? Or are you going to sit on your hands, keep your head down and hope they come for you last? Then explain to your children and grandchildren that it seemed like too much effort to stand up on your hind legs when they took your civil rights away and your children's. If you are not already defeated mentally, defeated emotionally, there are a few things you can do right now. Start with signing the petition to disbar a corrupt district attorney named Mary Kellett, linked on the main page of avoiceformen.com. You can also check the list of states with primary aggressor laws, also on avoiceformen.com, and find your state's primary aggressor law in that list and read it. Then write to your state representative and demand the striking of that law. Or you can sit on your ass and figure out how you'll explain to your children that the people back then didn't care when their rights were taken away. And that's why we don't have rights anymore, Timmy. And why your children and your grandchildren are now prisoners, or perhaps slaves.